All right, guys, we are looking at page 88 in our student journal, section 4.3. Our goal today is to be able to divide polynomials. We're going to be looking at two methods to divide polynomials. One is called polynomial long division. The other is called synthetic division. So what I did was I just went out and wrote out exactly how we do these two methods. I don't think it's necessary for you to copy this, though. If you decide you want to copy it, if you have trouble with it after I show it, you can always go back and watch these video notes and copy it down if you need to. But I kind of feel like it's a waste of time. It's not a difficult process. It's just something that you have not seen before. So one thing we're going to keep in mind is that if we divide a polynomial by a linear term such as x minus k, whatever that remainder is actually telling us the y value for that certain x. Okay, so it's telling us the y value, and I'll get more into that in just a minute. So like I said, there are two methods we're going to use to divide two polynomial functions. The first method is long division. Okay, so I'm going to divide these two first using the long division. So here's what my dividend is. And then here's my divisor. And I'm trying to figure out what the quotient is. So when I'm doing long division, I look here and I look here, and I have to divide those. So I've got to think, what is x cubed divided by x? I'm dividing this by this. So what is x cubed divided by x? X squared. So I put an x squared here. When I'm doing long division, what do I do after I've divided? What do I do if this had been a number and I was doing long division? Not subtract yet. I would multiply first, right? I'd multiply. So I'm going to do x squared times x. That's x to the third. I do x squared times 1, and that's x squared. So my process goes divide, multiply. Now what did we do with that warm-up problem when we were doing the long division? What was the next thing we did? Subtract. So now I have to subtract this whole thing. The whole thing has to get subtracted. So x cubed minus x cubed is 0. Negative 2x squared minus 1x squared is negative 3x squared. What was the next thing we did when we did that long division? We brought down a number. So I'm going to have to bring this down. Oh, I forgot to put subtract in there. Squeeze in the S for subtract. So we divided, we multiplied, we subtract, we bring down. Okay, so now what am I going to do? Well, go back up to the top again. I have to divide again. So I'm going to look here. I have to divide this first term by this first term. So I have to do negative 3x squared divided by x. What is that? Negative 3x squared divided by x. Negative 3x. So that's going to go up here. So now I've divided. So now I have to multiply. I only multiply what I just put up there. So this is what I just put up there. So I have to do negative 3x times x. I have to do negative 3x times 1. All right, so now I just multiplied. What do I do now? Subtract. So I have to subtract this whole thing. Well, if I have to do negative 3x squared minus a negative, and I'm going to have to do x minus a negative. So those are going to turn into pluses. So that's going to be 0. X plus 3x is 4x. So I just subtracted. What do I do next? Bring down. And now I go back up to the top and I have to divide. I have to divide 4x by x. What's 4x divided by x? So I'm going to put a 4 here. And now I'm going to have to multiply just what I put up there. So 4 times x and 4 times 1. So I just divided and I multiplied. So now I'm to the subtract. So I have to subtract. That's 0. This is -3. So just like if this had been just numbers that I was dividing, this is my quotient. So my answer is x squared minus 3x plus 4 remainder of -3. But I can also write that as x squared minus 3x plus 4 plus -3 over my divisor. Just like if these had been numbers and this was a -3 and this was a 5, well, let's make it just a 3 and a 5. I would say here's my answer and 3/5, right? Because that would be the fractional part. So that's how I can do this problem with long division. The next way we're going to look at is called synthetic division. We're going to do the same problem. Look at the steps. Write out the coefficients of each term, including 0 if needed. And this is in the dividend. So look at your dividend right here. I know you didn't get a chance to write that down, but that's okay. Our coefficients of the dividend are 1, -2, 1, and 1. The next thing I do is I take my divisor and I set it equal to 0. And I solve that. And I get -1. So -1 is actually my divisor. See, if this is a factor, I want to know what would it be as a point. So as a point, if I set it equal to 0, the solution would be -1. So I put -1 in the box. But these are just the coefficients of my dividend. 1, -2, 1, 1. Here's the steps. The first thing you do is you bring down this number. The next thing you do, after you've brought it down, is you multiply. So you're going to do 1 times -1. What is that? -1. Now you're going to add. So you're going to add these two. What do I get if I add those two? -3. And now I'm just going to continue these two over and over. So I just added. So now whatever I have right here, I'm going to multiply it by my divisor. So -3 times -1 is 3. What do I do now? Add. So 1 plus 3 is 4. So now I just added. So now I take what I have here and I multiply it. And I add. Now, what does this mean? Well, when we do this, right here, this is always going to be the remainder. Always the remainder in that spot. This is always going to be the constant term. So this is the constant term. Now I go up by 1 power. So this is really x to the 0. This is my x term. So what's this going to be? The x squared term. So I know my answer then is 1x squared minus 3x plus 4 remainder of -3. See how that gave me the same answer as the long division? So at first this may seem kind of complicated, but once you get the hang of it, bring down, multiply, add, multiply, add. You can do this so fast. You'll like this way better as we go on further. All right, let's go over here now. We're going to do number 2. I said second, but we're just going to go ahead and do this. All right, now, can I solve this for 0 and get just one number to put inside that box? No. Since I can't solve that equal to 0 and get one answer, I'd actually get two answers if I did it, I have to use long division. So we're only going to use long division if we have to from now on. And I have to use it on this one. Would I have to use it on that one? Can I solve that and get it set equal to 0 and just get one number? So I would just use my synthetic on that one. But on this one, I'm going to have to use long division. So here's my divisor. That's going to go over here. And here is my dividend. If I don't have a term, I have to put a 0. I don't have an x term, so I'm going to have to put a 0x. I don't have a constant term, so I'm going to have to put a 0. I have to have a placeholder for every term. Look at it again. This is fine, but I don't have an x term, I don't have a constant term, so I fill them in with 0 terms. I look here and here. Everyone, what's x cubed divided by x squared? X. I multiply. X times x squared is x cubed. X times negative 16 is negative 16x. I am not going to put that here. I'm going to put that here. Why did I put it here instead of there? These are like terms and I'm going to have to subtract, right? So I don't want to put that here because I can't subtract those. They're not like terms. So now I have to subtract. So I subtract. I have to subtract this, so I'd really be adding minus a negative. When I subtract these two, I get 0. When I subtract these two, I get 16x. But I have to bring down everything else. I have to bring this down. And I can even bring this down if I want. I may not need it, but we'll see. What's negative 4x squared divided by x squared? Negative 4. Now I multiply negative 4 times x squared, and I multiply negative 4 by negative 16. That's positive 64. And now what do? Subtract. So I'm going to have to change the signs, and add is the same as subtracting. That cancels. Here I just get 16x. 0 minus 64 is negative 64. Can I divide 16x by x squared? No, I can't. It won't go into it. So what's this going to just be then? My remainder. So I would say then that my answer is x minus 4, remainder 16x minus 64. Or I could say my answer is x minus 4 plus 16x minus 64 over x squared plus 16. So here's my quotient, here's my remainder, here's my divisor. So I always put my remainder over my divisor. Any questions there? So when are we going to use long division? Only when we have to. If we can't set that equal to 0 and solve. All right, let's come down here now. Let's do this one, a little bit tougher. Can I set this equal to 0 and solve for x?
Yes.
What is it? Negative 3 is going to go in the box. Just like with long division, I must have a coefficient for every term. My coefficient of x cubed is 2. What's my coefficient of x squared?
0.
X, and then a negative 54. So I'm going to have to, first of all, I bring down. So this pattern goes bring down, and then it's mama, over and over. Multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add, over and over and over. So you bring this down, 2. Multiply, we get negative 6. Add. Multiply, we get 18. Add. Multiply, we get negative 54. Add. What do you think people put right here on this kind of problem? 0. Is it 0? Nope. It's negative 1008. or I'm sorry, negative 108. I was thinking it was going to be 5. All right, so now to figure out what all this means, this right here is going to be our remainder. This is our constant term. This is our x term. This is our x squared term. So what we end up with then for our answer is 2x squared minus 6x plus 18, and I can either put remainder of negative 108, or I can write it as 2x squared minus 6x plus 18 plus negative 108 over x plus 3. In our book, we'll write it one of those two ways. You feel like you can do the synthetic? All right, then I'm going to have you do one on your own. Flip over to the next page. And let's look here at number 14. On number 14, what's the difference here from all the other ones we've done? It's already solved for x, isn't it? It's already solved for x. So therefore, you don't have to solve it for x. What are you going to put in the box? Negative 1 goes in the box. Okay, so now you guys try it on your own. See if you can get it. I'll be doing it up here. That's a positive 4, and then I had a 0, so I just add, and I get 4.
So you don't multiply the negative 1 times 4?
I brought this down. I do negative 1 times negative 1. I put that here, and I add. Now I'm doing 1 times negative 1. I put that here, and then I add. 0 times negative 1 is 0. I add. 0 times negative 1 is 0. And I add. So you could never get a negative 4. How many people got that right on their own? All right, pretty good. Let's try one more. Try 16, see if you can get it. Little trick with it, be careful. Watch how I can kind of use my calculator to check this. So I'm not sure if I did that remainder right. It seems kind of big. But look what I did. I went to y equals and I put in this function that they gave me. This is supposed to tell me what the point is. When x is 3, what is y? That's what that remainder tells me. So when I go to my table I'm looking when x is 3, what is my y value? So I know my remainder's right, so most likely the rest of this is right. If my remainder was not right, I might want to go back and check this out and see what I did wrong. Okay? All right, last one, guys. What is the value of k such that negative x to the fourth plus 5x squared plus kx minus 8 divided by x minus 4 has a remainder of 0? So I want to know, what does this coefficient need to be in order for this to have a remainder of 0? Well, all I have to do is this. I'm going to think, what makes this equal 0? What goes in my box, guys? 4 is going to be the divisor. And then I'm going to look at my coefficients. Negative 1, 0, don't forget it, 5, k, and negative 8. So I bring down, and from there on, I multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply. Now, when I add these two, these are not like terms, so it's just going to be k minus 44 when I add those two. And now I have to multiply, so I have to multiply 4 times this whole thing. So that's going to be 4k minus 176. And now I'd have to add these two. Well, these are the only like terms, so that's going to be 4k minus 184. And then here's my remainder spot. What do I want that remainder to be? 0. So I would just have to say 4k minus 184 now has to be 0. Watch how I do this division, guys. I would like for you guys to do it this way too. It makes it go faster. I want to divide this by 4. Don't get out a calculator. 18 divided by 4 would be 4 with 2 left over. 4 goes into 24 6 times. So it has to be 46. I'm doing long division without truly showing it. Watch again. 18 divided by 4 was 4. But then that's 16, so I have 2 left over. So I have a 24. 4 goes into 24 6 times. Yes?
Can we practice one more long division problem?
If you want to, yeah. Let's go back up here. We'll do number 9 with long division. If you're good, guys, you can start on the homework or work on the weekly, whatever. Okay, so looking at this with long division. So we're going to put x minus 4 over here. And then here's what our dividend is. All right, Tim, so we look here and here at our first terms only. Can you tell me what x squared divided by x is? Good. So we put that up here. Now what do we do? Nope. It goes divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So we just divided. So now I have to multiply. So we have to multiply this times the whole divisor. So what do you get?
X squared minus 4x.
Good. So we just multiplied. So now what do we need to do? Subtract. So when I subtract, I just change the signs and add. That's the same thing as subtracting. So x squared minus x squared is 0. What's negative 1x plus 4x going to be? So now I just subtracted. So now I have to do what?
Or divide. Or bring down, sorry.
So we just brought down. So now we have to go back and divide again. So when I'm dividing, I only look at the first and the first. So what's 3x divided by x? So I put a 3 plus 3. Okay, and now what do I do after I divide? And I just multiply the 3 times that whole thing. So what's 3 times x? And what's 3 times negative 4? Okay, so we just multiplied, and so now we have to, so I have to subtract the whole thing.
Plus 4.
So 4. And now I have to see if I can divide, but I can't do 4 divided by x. So that's when I stop. This would be my remainder.
I get it now, thank you.
You're welcome. So my answer is x plus 3 plus 4 over my divisor, and that should match up with one of these. And it does right here.
All right.